The first time Evelyn Hart wore the sapphire necklace, the lights went out, not dimmed, not flickered, died. 1 second, the great marble hall of the Ashbourne Museum glittered beneath chandeliers, champagne glasses raised beneath painted ceilings, society women in winter silk murmuring over antique portraits and priceless silver. The next, the entire mansion dropped into darkness so complete that even the snow pressing against the tall windows seemed to vanish. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then glass exploded. A scream tore through the gallery. Evelyn felt a hand grab for her throat. She stumbled backward, one palm flying to the necklace resting against her collarbone. The sapphire was cold enough to burn. Someone's fingers scraped her skin. Another crash sounded from the west wing. Security alarms began howling through the old mansion, shrill and useless. "Give it to me," a man hissed in the dark. Evelyn could not see his face, only the outline of him moving toward her between the pale shapes of terrified guests. He was not museum security. He was not a thief who had wandered in hoping for jewelry and luck. He knew exactly what he wanted: the necklace. Her breath caught as he lunged. Before his hand reached her, the front doors of the museum blew open. Snow rushed in like smoke. The hall filled with headlights, black coats, and men moving with the silent precision of a private army. A dozen guests dropped to the floor. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else said a name like it was a death sentence. Dante Moretti. Evelyn turned toward the open doors. A man stood at the top of the marble steps, framed by the storm. Tall, broad-shouldered, still. His black overcoat moved slightly in the wind, but nothing else about him did. Not his face, not his hands, not his eyes, which moved across the chaos without panic, without surprise, without mercy. The men who had stormed the gallery froze. That was when Evelyn understood. They were not afraid of the police. They were afraid of him. Dante Moretti walked into the Ashbourne Museum as if he owned the building, the storm, and every heartbeat inside it. His men spread out without a word, sealing exits, covering staircases, forcing the intruders back. The man who had tried to grab Evelyn reached into his coat. Dante did not raise his voice. "Touch the weapon," he said, "and your mother will receive you in pieces." The man's hand stopped. Evelyn's pulse hammered so hard she could hear it beneath the alarms. Dante's gaze shifted to her. For one suspended second, the chaos seemed to thin around them. His eyes were dark, controlled, almost cruelly calm. Then they dropped to the sapphire necklace at her throat. Something changed in his face. Not softness, not shock, exactly. Recognition, grief, possession, the kind of emotion that did not ask permission before it entered a room. He crossed the marble floor toward her. Every instinct in Evelyn told her to step back. She did. Only once. Her heel struck broken glass. Dante stopped close enough that she could see snow melting on his shoulders. "Take it off," one of the intruders shouted from behind him. "She has no idea what she's wearing." Dante did not look away from Evelyn. "No," he said. Evelyn swallowed. "Do you know what this is?" His eyes stayed on the necklace. "I buried my wife in a coffin without that necklace," he said quietly, 6 years ago. The words hit the room harder than the broken glass. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the sapphire. "I didn't steal it. I know. You know nothing about me." His gaze lifted to hers. "That piece chose you," he said, voice low enough that only she could hear. "Before I had the chance to." Then another window shattered. Gunfire cracked through the east corridor, and Dante Moretti moved. He stepped in front of Evelyn so fast she barely saw it happen. His body became a wall between her and the violence. His hand closed around her wrist, not roughly, not gently, but with an authority that made arguing feel impossible. "Down. I'm not—" A bullet struck the marble column beside her head. Dante pulled her against him and took her to the floor as screams erupted across the hall. For the next 30 seconds, Evelyn knew only fragments. The smell of gunpowder beneath winter roses. The pressure of Dante's arm braced over her back. Black-suited men moving through white snow outside. A guest sobbing under a banquet table. The sapphire necklace pressed between her chest and the cold marble floor like a second heartbeat, and Dante's voice near her ear, calm as a confession. "Breathe, Evelyn." Her eyes snapped to his. "How do you know my name?" For the first time, something dangerous passed through his expression. Because the men trying to kill you knew it first. 6 hours earlier, Evelyn had been worried about flowers. Not gunfire, not dead wives, not mafia bosses walking through snowstorms with private armies. Flowers. The Ashbourne Museum's annual Winter Patron exhibition was the most important night of Newport's social season, a performance disguised as culture. Old families came to remind each other who still had money. New money came to pretend it had always belonged. Billionaires came to purchase silence in the form of charitable donations. Evelyn curated every detail. The 18th century portraits in the North Gallery, the restored Venetian mirrors in the ballroom, the rare maritime maps in the library, the champagne towers, the string quartet, the white roses flown in from California because Mrs. Helena Ashbourne had declared, with tragic sincerity, that local flowers lacked drama. At 32, Evelyn was the youngest senior curator in the museum's history, and the only person on staff capable of smiling politely while donors insulted the collection and called it support. She was good at staying composed. She had built an entire life out of it. Her office overlooked the snow-covered lawn sloping toward the cliffs, where the Atlantic struck the rocks below with a sound like slow applause. She loved the museum most before guests arrived, when the mansion still belonged to the art and not the people paying to stand near it. That afternoon, as storm clouds gathered over Newport, Evelyn stood alone in the restoration room, studying the sapphire necklace. It lay inside a velvet-lined case, bright as trapped midnight. The donation had arrived 3 days earlier, with no sender's name, only an unsigned note written in careful black ink. For the woman who knows how to preserve what others try to erase. The necklace was old, possibly late 19th century, though the setting had been altered more recently. White diamonds framed the central sapphire, and the chain was platinum, delicate but unusually strong. Evelyn had planned to display it beneath glass. Then Helena Ashbourne swept into the room wrapped in sable and entitlement. "Wear it tonight." Evelyn looked up. "Absolutely not. Donors enjoy seeing pieces alive. It creates intimacy. It creates insurance violations. It creates money." Helena smiled. "And money keeps your department open." That was how Evelyn ended up wearing a necklace that did not belong to her, standing beneath chandeliers while Newport's elite pretended not to stare. The reaction was immediate. The moment she entered the main hall, conversations thinned. A woman from the Preservation Council turned pale. An elderly man spilled champagne onto his cuff. Sebastian Vale, the museum's largest new patron, went completely still. That was the first moment Evelyn should have taken the necklace off. Sebastian recovered quickly. He was handsome in the expensive, polished way of men who learned early that charm could function as a weapon. He had silver at his temples, old money in his posture, and a voice trained to make threats sound like invitations. "Evelyn," he said, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne, "that necklace is extraordinary on you." Anonymous things are rarely innocent. She accepted neither the champagne nor the warning. "In my experience, neither are donors." He laughed softly. "That is why I like you. You say dangerous things as if you are discussing frame restoration. I discuss frame restoration with far more passion." His eyes dropped to the sapphire, and for the briefest moment, his smile failed. "Do you know its provenance?" "Not yet." "Then perhaps you should not wear it." The concern sounded elegant, but Evelyn felt something underneath it. Pressure, urgency, fear disguised as advice. Before she could answer, the museum director called Sebastian toward a group of trustees. He excused himself with a kiss to the air near her cheek, close enough to whisper, "Take it off before someone else recognizes it." Someone else did. At 9:17 p.m., Dante Moretti entered the museum guest list. Not through RSVP, not through invitation, through the memory of every powerful person in the room. His name arrived before he did, passing in whispers through the crowd after a black SUV was seen at the gates beyond the snow. Evelyn heard fragments. Moretti, East Coast ports, the widow. The Moretti War, a man no one said no to twice. She had never met him. She had heard the name only in the same way people heard thunder behind mountains. Distant, dangerous, possibly exaggerated. She turned toward the windows and saw black vehicles lining the drive outside the iron gates. Then the lights died. Now, on the floor, beneath broken glass, with Dante Moretti covering her body while his men fought through the east corridor, Evelyn realized the rumors had failed to capture the worst thing about him. It was not that he was violent, it was that he was calm inside violence. When the gunfire stopped, he rose first, pulling Evelyn up with him. His hand remained around her wrist. She tried to pull free. He looked at her once. Not yet. "I am not your prisoner." No. His eyes moved over her face, assessing for injury. "You're their target." Across the hall, two of his men forced an attacker to his knees. Blood ran from the man's eyebrow onto his collar. Dante approached him without hurry, Evelyn still behind him. "Who sent you?" Dante asked. The attacker spat near his shoes. "You know." Dante crouched, his expression unchanged. "If I knew, you would already be dead." "Vale owns the museum now," the man said. "He owns the girl too. You lost this before you walked in." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Sebastian." Dante's face did not move, but the air around him sharpened. "Where is he?" The man smiled with red teeth. "Gone." Dante stood. One of his men stepped closer. "Boss? Lock down the estate," Dante said. "No one leaves. No one enters. Cut the museum feeds. Find Vale." Evelyn pulled hard against his grip. This time he let her go. "You can't detain 300 people in a museum." Dante turned to her. "Watch me. I should call the police. The police will arrive after Vale's men have taken you, the necklace, and every hard drive in this building. You expect me to believe you're the safer option? No." He stepped closer, and the broken chandelier light caught the sharp lines of his face. "I expect you to survive long enough to hate me properly." The absurdity of it almost made her laugh. Almost. Museum guests were being gathered into the ballroom by Dante's men. Security guards looked helpless. Helena Ashbourne had fainted into a senator's arms. Someone was crying about a ruined gown. Evelyn touched the necklace again. "Why would your wife's necklace be donated to my museum?" Pain moved behind his eyes so quickly she nearly missed it. "Because dead women still have enemies," he said. "And living women?" His gaze held hers. "More." He guided her through a side corridor before she could refuse. Two men followed at a distance. Evelyn knew every inch of the Ashbourne Museum, every servant staircase and hidden staff passage built when rich people required invisibility from the people who kept their lives functioning. Dante seemed to know them too. That bothered her. "Have you been here before?" she asked. "Yes." "When?" "The night my wife died." Evelyn stopped walking. Dante stopped too, but did not turn around immediately. The corridor was dim, lit only by emergency strips along the floor. Beyond the tall windows, snow lashed against the glass. The museum felt less like a mansion now and more like a mausoleum. "Your wife died here?" "No." His voice was quiet. "She ran from here." Evelyn's throat tightened around words she did not know how to ask. Dante looked back at her. "Serafina Moretti came to this museum 6 years ago to meet someone who promised proof that her family had been betrayed. She left through the East Garden at 11:42 p.m. Her car was found burning on Ocean Road 17 minutes later. Her body was inside. The necklace was not." Evelyn looked down at the sapphire. Suddenly its weight felt unbearable. "I'm sorry," she said before she could stop herself. Dante's expression hardened, as if sympathy were a language he refused to understand. "Do not be sorry for ghosts. Be useful to the living." The words stung more than they should have. "I didn't ask to be useful to you." "No, but someone asked you to wear that necklace tonight." Evelyn thought of Helena, of Sebastian's warning, of the anonymous note. For the woman who knows how to preserve what others try to erase. Dante opened the door to her office without asking permission. "How do you know where I work?" she demanded. His gaze swept over the room, the bookshelves, the restoration table, the framed degrees, the mug of cold coffee, the wool coat hanging behind the door. I know everything about the building where my wife spent her last hour. That was not an answer. Evelyn moved to her desk and grabbed her phone. No signal. Your men cut the network. Vale cut it first. She opened a drawer, searching for the museum's emergency satellite phone. It was gone. Her blood chilled. Dante watched her realize it. Still think I'm the biggest problem in the room? She slammed the drawer shut. I think you're one of several. For the first time, something almost like amusement touched his mouth. It disappeared quickly. One of his men entered. Dante, we found the donor paperwork. The necklace came through a shell foundation tied to Vale. But the courier signature is wrong. Wrong how? It matches Serafina. The room seemed to shrink. Dante went very still. Evelyn looked between them. That's impossible. You said she died 6 years ago. His man's jaw tightened. Yes. Dante held out his hand. Show me. The tablet displayed a scanned receipt from the donation intake. Evelyn recognized the form. She recognized the date. 3 days ago. At the bottom, in elegant black script, was a signature. Serafina Moretti. Evelyn felt the blood leave her face. Dante stared at the signature for so long that his silence became frightening. Then he turned toward her. Who handled the donation? I did. Who else touched the necklace? 2 registrars. The director. Conservation. Did anyone ask you to wear it besides Helena Ashbourne? Evelyn hesitated. Dante saw it. His voice lowered. Tell me. Sebastian Vale told me to take it off. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Dante's man muttered a curse under his breath. Evelyn looked at Dante. What aren't you telling me? He stepped close enough that she had to tilt her head to hold his gaze. Sebastian Vale was the last man seen speaking to my wife before she died. The office door burst open before Evelyn could respond. A museum guard stumbled in, bleeding from his shoulder. Miss Hart, there are men in the archive. Evelyn moved immediately. The archive? Dante caught her arm. No, that archive contains colonial ledgers, donor records, family papers. It contains something Vale wants badly enough to kill for. Then we can't let him take it. Dante's eyes narrowed. You are not trained for this. This is my museum. And that is exactly why they're using you. She stepped closer, anger breaking through fear. You do not get to walk into my life, terrify my guests, cut my phones, and then tell me where I'm allowed to stand. A muscle moved in his jaw. For a moment, Evelyn thought he might drag her out by force. Instead, he leaned down, his voice soft and lethal. Stay behind me. It should not have felt like a compromise. It did. They reached the archive through a back staircase barely wide enough for 2 people. Below the public glamour of Ashbourne, the basement was all stone, steel shelving, and climate-controlled darkness. Emergency lights glowed red along the ceiling. Somewhere ahead, metal scraped against metal. Evelyn moved past Dante before he could stop her. Evelyn. She ignored him and punched her code into the archive door. It opened. 3 masked men stood among overturned boxes and scattered documents. One held a crowbar. One held a pistol. The third had a leather-bound ledger tucked beneath his arm. Everyone froze. Then the man with the pistol aimed at Evelyn. Dante fired once. The gun flew from the man's hand. He screamed and dropped. Evelyn flinched back against the doorframe, shock flashing through her body. Dante did not look at her. His men moved in, swift and brutal, disarming the others. The man with the ledger tried to run. Evelyn saw the label on the spine. Val Ashbourne Acquisitions, 1989 to 1997. She lunged for it. The man swung backward, knocking her into a shelf. Pain burst through her shoulder. The sapphire necklace snapped forward, the pendant striking the metal edge of a storage drawer. A sharp click sounded. The sapphire opened. Not visibly, not dramatically. Just a tiny release in the setting. A folded strip of microfilm slid into Evelyn's palm. Dante saw it. So did the man with the ledger. His eyes widened. She opened it. Then he bit down hard. Dante grabbed his jaw too late. Foam touched the man's lips. His body convulsed once, then went still. Evelyn stared, horror clawing up her throat. Dante pulled her away from the body. Don't look. She shoved his hand off. He just killed himself. He was trained to. By whom? Dante's gaze dropped to the microfilm in her hand. By someone who knew what that necklace carried. Upstairs, sirens finally approached through the storm. Dante took the microfilm from her, then paused. His fingers brushed her palm. It was the smallest contact, but his hand stopped there a fraction too long. Evelyn felt it. So did he. He pulled away first. You're leaving with me. No. Vale's men breached the museum, poisoned their own operative, and came for something hidden in a necklace around your neck. You cannot go home. I have police protection. You have police witnesses, not protection. I don't know you. His eyes darkened. You know I stood between you and a bullet. That doesn't make you safe. No, he said. It makes me necessary. She hated that he was right. The police arrived to find the Ashbourne Museum surrounded by black SUVs, half its windows broken, its richest patrons trembling in the ballroom, and Dante Moretti standing calmly beside Evelyn Hart as if the entire disaster were a private inconvenience. By midnight, the story had leaked. By morning, Evelyn's photograph was everywhere. Museum curator, at center of Mafia gala shootout. Dead wife's necklace sparks Newport bloodbath. Who is Evelyn Hart? The worst photo showed Dante pulling her behind him. One hand on her waist, his coat open just enough to reveal the gun at his side. Her face was pale, shocked, too close to his shoulder. It looked intimate. It looked damning. It looked like a relationship. Sebastian Vale made sure the world believed it. By sunrise, every news outlet in New England was suggesting that Evelyn had been secretly involved with Dante Moretti before the gala. The museum suspended her pending investigation. Donors demanded answers. Her apartment building was swarmed by reporters before she even reached it. Dante did not ask if she wanted to go home. He took her there anyway, with 6 SUVs, 12 men, and a silence that felt like a sentence. Evelyn stood in the lobby of her own building, while cameras flashed outside the glass doors. I can go upstairs alone, she said. Dante looked at the elevator. No. You don't say anything else? When necessary. It's necessary to treat me like an adult. His gaze moved to the reporters outside. Adults die when they confuse pride with safety. She laughed once, bitterly. Do you always speak like you're carving warnings into stone? Only when people are trying to kill the woman wearing my wife's necklace. There it was again. My wife. Not dead wife, not late wife. My wife. Evelyn hated the small, unreasonable ache those words caused. She should not care about the grief of a man whose name made armed men lower their eyes. She should not notice that he never touched the necklace, never asked for it back, never looked at it without punishing himself. But she noticed. Upstairs, her apartment had been searched. Not by police. Drawers hung open. Books lay gutted on the floor. Her mattress had been cut from seam to seam. Family photos were scattered across broken glass. The small ceramic bowl her mother had made before she died was shattered in the kitchen. Evelyn stopped in the doorway. Dante went still behind her. For the first time all night, his calm changed shape. It became cold, deadly. This was Vale, one of his men said after checking the rooms. Evelyn walked into the apartment slowly. She picked up a broken photo frame from the floor. Inside was a picture of her at 17, standing beside her adoptive mother outside a courthouse on the day her name change became official. Dante noticed. You were adopted? She set the frame down. Foster care first, then adoption. When? I was 7. Before that, her fingers tightened. I don't remember much. That was not entirely true. She remembered white curtains, a woman singing in another language, the smell of oranges, a man's voice telling her not to make a sound, a blue light swinging above her like water. Then nothing clear, only nightmares. Dante watched her too closely. What was your name before Hart? I don't know. You never looked. I tried. Her voice came out sharper than intended. Records burned, files missing, people suddenly unable to help. You know, normal things. His expression did not soften, but something in his eyes shifted. Recognition again. He turned to his men. "Pack what she needs." Evelyn faced him. "Excuse me? You're coming to my house." "No, I am not. Your home is compromised. Your identity is public. Your employer has abandoned you. The police are leaking. Vale knows your patterns, your building, your history. You don't get to decide where I sleep." Dante stepped toward her. "No," he said quietly. "I decide where you don't die." She should have slapped him. She almost did. Instead, her eyes burned in a way that humiliated her more than fear. "This is my life," she said. "Not one of your territories." His gaze held hers. "It became my territory when they put your blood on the table." "You don't know anything about my blood." He looked at the broken adoption photo. "No," he said, "but I think someone has been afraid of it for a very long time." Dante Moretti's Newport property was not a mansion. It was a fortress pretending to be one. It sat on a cliff outside the city, black stone and glass facing the Atlantic, surrounded by iron gates, winter gardens, security cameras, and men who spoke into their sleeves. Inside, it was all dark wood, candlelight, silent hallways, and art that looked too old to be decorative. Evelyn expected vulgar luxury. Gold statues, marble lions, tasteless proof of money. Instead, she found restraint, a library with first editions behind locked glass, a dining room set for no one, a grand staircase beneath a painting of the sea during a storm, a house built by a lonely man who did not invite warmth unless it served a purpose. A woman waited in the foyer. She was small, dark-haired, perhaps 5 years old, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. Her eyes were Dante's. Evelyn stopped. Dante's expression changed so subtly that no one else might have seen it, but Evelyn did. The cold man disappeared for half a breath. "Lucia," he said. The child looked at Evelyn, then at the necklace. Her little face went pale. "Mama's star," she whispered. The words struck Evelyn with such force she stepped back. Dante's hand moved as if to steady her, then stopped before touching her. That restraint did something strange to her chest. "I didn't know you had a daughter," Evelyn said. "No one does." Lucia moved closer to Dante, but did not reach for him. He crouched to her height, still in his black coat, still carrying the aftermath of blood and snow, and spoke to her gently in Italian. Evelyn did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. Careful, protective, afraid of being too much. Lucia answered in a whisper, never taking her eyes off the sapphire. Dante stood. "She thinks you're a ghost," he said. Evelyn swallowed. "I'm beginning to understand the feeling." A housekeeper took Lucia upstairs. The little girl looked back once, and the grief in her eyes made Evelyn's anger falter. "You said no one knows she exists." "Very few. Why?" Dante looked toward the staircase. "Because my wife died for what she knew. My daughter would die for what she inherited." "And now me?" His eyes returned to hers. "Now you." The forced proximity began not with a bedroom or a confession, but with rules. Dante put Evelyn in a guest suite overlooking the stormy coastline. 2 guards outside the door, 1 encrypted phone she was allowed to use only under supervision. No internet except through Dante's network. No leaving the property. "You make imprisonment sound very organized," Evelyn said as he stood in the doorway. He did not react. "You may hate me from any room in the house." "How generous. You may also survive from any room in the house." She crossed her arms. "And the necklace?" His eyes dropped to it. "Keep wearing it." That surprised her. "Why?" "Because Vale expected me to take it from you." So we will disappoint him." He turned to leave. "Dante." He paused. It was the first time she had said his name without anger, and she hated that he noticed. "Did you love her?" Evelyn asked. The question hung between them with dangerous intimacy. Dante did not answer quickly. Then he said, "I failed her." "That isn't what I asked." His hand tightened once against the doorframe. "No," he said, "but it is the answer I have." He left before she could ask anything else. That night, Evelyn did not sleep. She sat by the window, watching waves break against black cliffs, while the sapphire lay heavy at her throat. At 2 in the morning, Movement outside caught her eye. Dante stood in the snow below her balcony. Alone. No umbrella, no phone, no guards close enough to interrupt him. He looked up once, saw her watching, and did not move. For several seconds, they stared at each other through the glass. A sane woman would close the curtains. Evelyn did not. The next morning, he acted as if it had not happened. Dante's people converted the library into a war room. Screens displayed museum camera footage, donation records, shipping manifests, genealogy charts, and old newspaper clippings. Evelyn stood before a digital scan of the microfilm, while Dante's inner circle watched her as though she were both guest and weapon. The microfilm showed legal documents from 1992, birth certificates, trust transfers, a sealed inheritance agreement between 3 old families, Vale, Ashbourne, and Belladonna. Belladonna. The name did something to Evelyn's bones. She touched the table for balance. Dante saw it. "You know that name?" "No." But her voice betrayed her. One of his analysts enlarged a faded photograph. A woman stood outside the Ashbourne Museum 30 years earlier. Dark hair pinned elegantly, a sapphire necklace at her throat. Beside her was a little girl, with wide eyes and a ribbon in her hair. The caption read, "Isadora Belladonna and daughter, Celeste, at the Newport Winter Exhibition." Evelyn stared at the child. The room went silent. The little girl in the photograph had Evelyn's eyes. Dante looked at her. "Evelyn." She stepped back. "No. Listen to me. No." The walls seemed to tilt. And she could hear the alarms from the museum again, the breaking glass, Lucia whispering Mama's star. Dante moved toward her, but she raised a hand. "Don't." He stopped. That mattered, more than it should have. His analyst continued quietly. Celeste Belladonna disappeared in 1997 after a fire at the family's Newport estate. Officially presumed dead, no body recovered. All Belladonna assets transferred through emergency guardianship to the Vale Foundation. Sebastian Vale. Evelyn felt sick. "That's not proof," she said. "No," Dante agreed. His calm made her angry. "You wanted this. You wanted the necklace to lead to something. I wanted it to lead to my wife's killer, and instead it led to me?" His silence was answer enough. Evelyn laughed once, hollowly. "Of course. Because why would my life be mine?" She turned to leave, but Dante followed her into the hallway. "Evelyn." She spun on him. "Did you know?" "No." "Did you suspect?" "Yes." The honesty hit worse than a lie. "Since when?" "Since I saw you wearing it. So from the first moment, I was not a person to you. I was evidence." His jaw tightened. "You were a woman, standing in a room full of men trying to kill her. And after that?" He did not answer. There was the emotional betrayal. Quiet. Intimate. Worse than violence. Evelyn nodded slowly. "Thank you for clarifying." She walked away. This time, he did not stop her. For 3 days, the house became a battlefield of silence. Evelyn helped decode the museum records, because she needed the truth more than she needed pride. She avoided Dante except when necessary. He did not apologize. He did not soften. He simply placed more guards on her floor, assigned a driver she refused to use, and had every cup of coffee tested before it reached her. Possessive protection without tenderness. It infuriated her. It also saved her. On the 4th day, she received a call from the museum director. Dante stood across the room while the encrypted speaker played. "Evelyn," the director said, voice shaking. "The board wants this to end. Mr. Vale is offering full legal support if you make a statement." "What kind of statement?" A pause. "That Mr. Moretti coerced you. That the necklace was stolen property. That you had no knowledge of its history." Evelyn looked at Dante. His face revealed nothing. "And in exchange?" she asked. "The museum keeps its funding. You avoid charges. Everyone moves on. Everyone except the dead. Everyone except the missing child she might have been. Everyone except Serafina Moretti, who had somehow reached across death to place a necklace at Evelyn's throat." "No," Evelyn said. The director inhaled sharply. "Think carefully." "I am." She ended the call. Dante watched her. "You should have taken the deal," he said. Her anger flared. "Do you ever get tired of assuming I'll choose fear?" "No. I get tired of watching people punish you for not choosing it." That stole her response. The room went quiet. Snow fell beyond the windows. Somewhere in the house, Lucia laughed softly at something a housekeeper said. The sound was fragile and human in the middle of all that danger. Dante looked away first. "Vale will escalate now." "Good," Evelyn said. "So will I." That night, she found the hidden surveillance. Not in her room. In the library, a wall of screens behind a sliding panel, showing exterior cameras, gate feeds, museum archives, and one paused image from outside her old apartment building. Dante standing in the rain. Not from last week, from months ago. Evelyn's breath caught as she opened the files. There were no bedroom images, no private violations, but there were street camera stills, museum entrance footage, donor event photographs, security alerts. Dante had been monitoring threats around her long before the necklace arrived. She sensed him before he spoke. "I can explain." She turned slowly. Dante stood in the doorway, shadowed by the hall. "How long?" His expression remained controlled, but his eyes were tired. 8 months. Evelyn's laugh was quiet and disbelieving. 8 months. Vale began moving assets through the museum. Your name appeared in connection with restricted Belladonna files. I assigned surveillance to determine whether you were involved. Involved, she repeated. You thought I was working with him. At first. And then? His gaze locked on hers. Then I watched you refuse a bribe from a trustee who could have doubled your department budget. I watched you spend 3 nights restoring a damaged portrait no one else cared about, because the woman in it had been painted over by her husband's family. I watched you give your coat to a homeless man outside the museum when you thought no one saw. Her anger faltered, but only for a second. That does not make surveillance romantic. No, he said. It makes it inexcusable. That answer surprised her. He stepped closer, slowly. I do not know how to protect gently. I know how to identify threats, remove them, and punish the men who send them. With you, I kept telling myself that was enough. And now? His eyes moved over her face, lingering with a restraint that felt almost painful. Now I know it is not. For a moment, the room seemed too small for both of them. Evelyn should have walked away. Instead, she said, Did you ever sit outside my apartment in the rain? Yes. Why? His voice dropped. Because one night you came home crying. She stopped breathing. No one knew that. It had been after a donor dinner, where Sebastian Vale had cornered her with too many questions about her childhood. She had made it to her apartment before breaking down on the stairs. She had told herself no one saw. You didn't come in, she said. You did not know me. You could have introduced yourself. I was still pretending I was not already yours to fear. The words landed between them like a confession and a warning. Evelyn's heart beat painfully. You don't get to say things like that after admitting you watched me for months. I know. But you said it anyway. Yes. Why? Dante stepped close enough that she could see the pulse at his throat. His hand lifted slightly, as if he might touch her cheek. Then he stopped. The almost touch was worse than contact. Because I am tired of lying to myself in rooms where you are standing. Before she could respond, an explosion shook the house. The windows flashed white. Dante moved instantly, grabbing Evelyn and pulling her behind a marble column as alarms screamed through the mansion. Gunfire erupted near the west gate. Dante's hand pressed against the back of Evelyn's head, holding her close while glass rained across the floor. His body covered hers again, like instinct had replaced thought. Lucia, Evelyn gasped. Dante's face changed. Fear, real fear, not for himself, for his daughter. They ran. The attack came from the coastline, not the gate. Vale's men had used the storm drains beneath the cliff, an old smuggling route from Newport's Prohibition days. Dante's men fought through the lower levels, while smoke rolled through the service corridors. Evelyn knew old houses. She knew hidden passages. Museums and mansions had the same bones. This way, she said, grabbing Dante's sleeve. He did not question her. They found Lucia in the east wing, trapped with her nanny behind a locked security door. Smoke seeped under the frame. The electronic panel had failed. Dante slammed his shoulder into the door once, twice. It did not move. "Move," Evelyn said. He looked at her. "Move." She grabbed an antique iron fire tool from the wall and smashed the ornamental panel beside the door, exposing the old manual release hidden beneath. Dante stared for half a second, then pulled the lever hard enough to tear metal. The door opened. Lucia stood inside, coughing. Rabbit clutched to her chest. Dante dropped to his knees and pulled her into his arms. Evelyn saw him break. Not dramatically, not fully, just enough. His hand trembled against his daughter's hair. His eyes closed for 1 second too long. Then he looked at Evelyn over Lucia's shoulder. Something passed between them that neither of them was ready to name. A bullet struck the wall behind him. Dante rose with Lucia in one arm and grabbed Evelyn's hand with the other. They ran through smoke, down a servant staircase, into a stone tunnel beneath the house. Behind them, part of the west wing burned. At the tunnel exit, black SUVs waited in the snow. As Dante handed Lucia to his most trusted guard, another shot cracked from the tree line. Evelyn heard it before she felt anything. Dante turned. The bullet meant for her struck him high in the shoulder. He staggered, but did not fall. Evelyn screamed his name. For 1 second, the feared Dante Moretti looked almost surprised, not by the wound, but by the sound of her voice breaking over him. Then his men returned fire and dragged them into the SUV. Blood darkened Dante's coat. Evelyn pressed both hands to his shoulder, panic rising hot and wild. "Look at me," she said. He did. His face was pale, but his voice remained controlled. It missed anything important. "You arrogant. Do not comfort me like I'm the one bleeding," Lucia sobbed in the front seat. Dante's eyes shifted toward her, then back to Evelyn. "Keep pressure. I am. Harder. I know how pressure works." His mouth almost curved. Then his eyelids lowered. "Dante," no response. "Dante," still nothing. Evelyn slapped his face. His eyes opened. "Do that again," he murmured, "and my men will think we're engaged." Relief and fury crashed through her so violently she nearly cried. "I hate you." "No," he said, voice fading. "You hate that you don't." The safe house was an abandoned coastal chapel converted into a fortress. Of course it was. Only Dante Moretti would hide in a church and make it look like the church had chosen fear. Snow battered stained glass windows. Candles burned before saints with chipped faces. Medical supplies covered the altar. Dante sat shirtless in the old sacristy, while a doctor removed the bullet from his shoulder without anesthesia because he refused to be unconscious while Lucia was awake. Evelyn stood beside him, holding a basin she did not need to hold. When the doctor reached for the wound again, Dante's hand tightened on the edge of the chair. Evelyn stepped closer. His eyes found hers. "Don't," he said. "Don't what?" "Look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I can be hurt." Her throat tightened. "You can." He looked away. "No one useful believes that." "I'm not useful to you, remember? I'm evidence." The regret in his eyes came fast and raw. "I was wrong. It was not enough. It was everything." The doctor finished and left them alone in the candlelit room. For a while, only the storm spoke. Then Dante said, "Serafina was pregnant when she died." Evelyn went still. "I didn't know until after. The medical examiner was paid to bury it. The whale made sure I found out just enough to suffer and not enough to prove anything." Evelyn's heart ached despite herself. Lucia? Born through a surrogate before Serafina died. Frozen embryos. Arranged in secret because my enemies watched every doctor we used. Serafina wanted one child no one could turn into leverage. And yet here we are. Yes. He looked toward the chapel door, beyond which Lucia slept under guard. Serafina did not die because she was my wife. She died because she discovered Vale had stolen the Belladonna inheritance after murdering the family. She believed one child survived. Evelyn's breath shook. Me? Yes. Why would she care? Dante reached into his blood-stained coat and removed a folded letter sealed in plastic. This was hidden in the necklace's microfilm case. I did not show you because I was waiting to verify it. Because you didn't trust me. Because I trusted my need for revenge more than I trusted your right to the truth. The honesty hurt less this time. Evelyn took the letter. The handwriting matched the donation signature. Celeste, if this reaches you, then I failed to tell you in person. Your name was stolen because your inheritance could destroy men who built empires on graves. I was your mother's friend. I was supposed to get you out. I was too late, but not too late to leave you proof. Do not trust Sebastian Vale. Do not trust the Ashbourne board. And if my husband finds you before the truth does, make him remember he was a man before he became a weapon. Serafina Moretti. Evelyn read it twice. The room blurred. Dante stood despite the pain. Evelyn. She knew me. Yes. She tried to save me. Yes. And you kept this from me. His silence was a wound. She looked up at him, tears hot in her eyes. You protected me from bullets and stole the truth from me in the same breath. His face tightened. I know. You don't get to decide what breaks me. No. You don't get to turn my life into strategy. No. Her voice trembled. Then stop agreeing with me like it fixes anything. He stepped closer, but not too close. I do not know how to fix what I have done. That was the first helpless thing she had ever heard him say. It should have satisfied her. It devastated her. Evelyn wiped her tears with shaking fingers. Start by trusting me. Dante's eyes held hers. Then he reached into his pocket and placed a small drive in her palm. What is this? Everything I have on Vale. Shipping routes, judges, police payments, museum transfers, the men who killed Serafina, the men who burned your family home. She stared at the drive. This could destroy you too. Yes. Why give it to me? His voice dropped. Because I would rather you hate me with the truth than stay beside me because I controlled the lie. A silence stretched between them. Then gunfire cracked outside the chapel. Dante cursed softly. Evelyn almost laughed from sheer exhaustion. Does anyone in your life knock? Rarely more than once. Vale had not come personally. Men like Sebastian Vale preferred clean cuffs and distant violence. But he sent enough men to turn the chapel into war. Dante's people moved Lucia through an underground crypt tunnel. Evelyn went with her, holding the child's hand while distant gunfire echoed through stone. Lucia did not cry this time. Are you scared? Evelyn whispered. Lucia nodded. Me too. My papa gets scary when people hurt us. Evelyn looked back toward the stairs, where Dante had stayed behind. Yes, she said softly. He does. Lucia squeezed her hand. Mama said scary men can still be lonely. Evelyn's chest tightened. Your mama was very wise. She said Papa forgot how to come back from war. Evelyn closed her eyes for 1 second. Then an armed man stepped from the tunnel ahead. Evelyn pushed Lucia behind her. The man smiled. Miss Hart, Mr. Vale would like his property returned. Evelyn lifted her chin. I am not property. No. But the name under your skin is... He reached for Lucia. Evelyn swung the iron lantern in her hand, with every ounce of strength she had. It struck his face. He cursed and staggered. Lucia screamed. Evelyn grabbed the fallen gun with both hands, though she had never fired one in her life. Stay back, she said. The man laughed through blood. You won't shoot me. A voice behind him said, No. Dante emerged from the darkness, wounded shoulder bandaged beneath his black shirt, gun raised. She won't. He fired. The man dropped. Evelyn flinched, pulling Lucia against her. Dante lowered the gun, his eyes on Evelyn's face. I'm sorry, he said, not for killing the man, for making her see it, for making this her life, for being what stood between her and worse monsters. The chapel did not burn, but the night did. By dawn, Vale made his final move. He released documents claiming Evelyn Hart was mentally unstable, manipulated by Dante Moretti, and involved in an elaborate art fraud tied to the sapphire necklace. He announced a press conference at the Ashbourne Museum to restore public trust, and promised to donate $50 million to preserve Newport's cultural heritage. It was elegant. It was cruel. It was brilliant. If Evelyn stayed hidden, Vale would erase her. If she appeared, he would kill her. Dante stood before the chapel's broken stained glass, shoulders stiff, face unreadable. No, Evelyn crossed her arms. I haven't said the plan yet. You want to go to the press conference? Yes, no. You see how limited your vocabulary becomes when you panic? His eyes sharpened. I do not panic. You do when it's Lucia. She stepped closer. And you do when it's me. The words struck him. He looked away. Evelyn softened despite herself. Dante, no. This is not just your revenge. It's my name, my mother, my life. Vale will have shooters everywhere. Then we use that. His gaze returned slowly. She lifted the drive. He thinks I'm afraid of being seen. He's wrong. Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, if we do this, the world will think you belong to me. I don't belong to anyone. No, he said quietly. You don't. That answer moved through her like warmth. But they will still think it, he added. Evelyn held his gaze. Then let them look. The Ashbourne Museum reopened beneath a sky the color of steel. Reporters crowded the snow-covered steps. Police barricades lined the street. Sebastian Vale stood before the cameras in a charcoal coat, his expression solemn, his voice rich with manufactured grief. Behind him, the museum's broken windows had been covered with temporary glass. A bandage on a corpse. Miss Hart, Vale said to the cameras, is a tragic example of what happens when vulnerable people are drawn into criminal influence. The black SUVs arrived before he finished. One by one, they rolled through the gates and stopped in perfect formation. Reporters turned. Cameras swung. Dante Moretti stepped out first. The crowd erupted. Then Evelyn stepped out beside him wearing a black coat. Her hair swept back, the sapphire necklace blazing at her throat. The world went silent. Dante offered his arm. Evelyn looked at it. She knew what it meant. Protection. Performance. A fake relationship for the cameras. A public claim sharp enough to keep enemies hesitant. She placed her hand on his arm anyway. His body went still. Not because of the cameras, because she chose it. They walked up the steps together. Sebastian Vale's face did not change, but Evelyn saw the fury behind his eyes. Evelyn, he said warmly into the microphones. Thank God you're safe, she smiled. It was the kind of smile women learn from men who underestimate them. Are we pretending you wanted that? The microphones caught every word. Vale laughed softly. You're confused. No, Evelyn said. For the first time in my life, I'm not. Dante stood beside her, silent and terrifying. Evelyn reached into her coat and held up the drive. This contains proof that Sebastian Vale used the Ashbourne Museum and multiple charitable foundations to steal the Belladonna inheritance, launder criminal money, bribe public officials, and conceal the murder of Serafina Moretti. The crowd exploded. Vale's smile vanished. This is absurd. And this, Evelyn continued, touching the necklace, contains the original evidence, hidden by Serafina before she was killed. Vale looked at Dante. You let her do this? You hide behind women now? Dante's voice was calm. No, I stand beside them. Vale's eyes flicked to someone in the crowd. Evelyn saw it. Dante did too. The shooter lifted a camera case. Dante moved before anyone screamed. He shoved Evelyn behind him as shots rang out across the steps. Panic tore through the press line. Police ducked. Glass shattered. Dante's men surged forward. Evelyn hit the stone steps hard, the drive skidding from her hand. Vale lunged for it. She grabbed his wrist. He looked down at her with hatred stripped of polish. You have no idea what your family was, he hissed. Evelyn tightened her grip. Better than yours. He struck her across the face. Dante saw. The world narrowed. The controlled, cold, feared man disappeared. What remained was worse. Dante crossed the steps through gunfire, like violence had been waiting its whole life to obey him. He hit Vale once, drove him into the stone balustrade, and wrapped one hand around his throat. Cameras kept rolling. Police shouted. Evelyn pushed herself up, blood at her lip. Dante, He did not hear her. Dante. Vale choked out a laugh. There he is. The animal. Dante's grip tightened. Evelyn stumbled to him and placed her hand over his. His eyes snapped to hers. The rage in them was terrifying. So was the fear beneath it. If you kill him here, she whispered, he takes the last piece of you with him. Dante breathed hard, his hand still around Vale's throat. He hurt you. I know. He tried to erase you. He failed. His eyes searched hers. In front of cameras, police, enemies, and the ghosts of 2 murdered families, Evelyn held his hand and asked him to come back from the edge. For one terrible second, she thought he would not. Then his fingers loosened. Vale collapsed, gasping. Dante stepped back, not because he was merciful, because Evelyn asked. Federal agents moved in seconds later, not the compromised locals, but a unit Dante had forced into action by sending the drive to every major news outlet. At the same time Evelyn stepped from the SUV. Vale shouted about illegal evidence, political conspiracy, mafia manipulation. No one listened. They were too busy watching the documents appear live on every screen in America. By sunset, Sebastian Vale was in custody. By midnight, 3 judges had resigned, 2 police captains had vanished, and the Ashbourne Museum Board had been dissolved. By morning, Evelyn Hart had a new name. Celeste Belladonna. She did not know if she wanted it, but for the first time, it was hers to decide. Weeks passed before the snow began to melt. The world turned Evelyn into a headline, then a symbol, then a scandal, then a woman again. Some called her brave, some called her dangerous. Some called her Dante Moretti's mistress, because the world hated uncertainty and preferred simple lies. Evelyn returned to the museum only once before resigning. She walked through the restored marble hall alone, the sapphire necklace no longer at her throat, but locked safely in evidence. The walls looked different now, not less beautiful, just less innocent. Dante waited outside in the rain, not snow this time. Rain. He stood beside the black SUV, coat open, no umbrella, as if weather had never once had permission to affect him. Evelyn stopped beneath the museum portico. You know, she said, most people wait inside cars. I am not most people. No, most people apologize faster. His eyes held hers. I am sorry. She did not expect it to hurt, but it did, because he meant it. I used your life as a battlefield, he said. I watched you before I knew you. I kept truth from you, because revenge felt cleaner than trust. I told myself protecting you justified every choice. And now? Now I know protection without respect is just another cage. The rain softened between them. Evelyn looked at the man who had terrified half the East Coast, who had stood between her and bullets, who had lied to her, saved her, failed her, trusted her, and almost lost himself, because someone struck her in front of him. You scare me, she said. I know. But not the way you did before. His expression changed. Barely. Hope looked dangerous on him. I don't want to disappear into your world, she said. I don't want guards deciding my life. I don't want love that feels like ownership. His voice was quiet. Then I will learn another way. You make that sound easy. It will not be. No, she agreed. It won't. He looked down, then back at her. I cannot promise to become gentle. I never asked for gentle. What do you ask for? Evelyn stepped closer. Honesty. Choice. And when you feel the need to burn the world down for me, maybe ask first. For the first time since she had met him, Dante Moretti smiled. It was small, almost unwilling, devastating. I will try. That is not a yes. It is the most honest answer I have. She should have walked to her own car. Instead, she reached for his hand. Dante looked down at their joined fingers, as if she had placed something sacred there. He did not tighten his grip until she did first. The first time he kissed her, it was not in a bedroom, not in a storm of panic, not because danger had forced their bodies close. It was beneath the museum portico while rain fell over Newport and cameras waited beyond the gates. He leaned in slowly enough for her to stop him. She did not. His lips touched hers with restraint that trembled at the edges. A man used to taking stopped himself at the border of being invited. Evelyn felt the violence he held back, the grief he carried, the devotion he did not yet know how to offer without making it sound like a threat. When he pulled away, his forehead rested briefly against hers. "I thought Serafina's necklace brought you to me," he said. Evelyn touched his face, feeling the slight roughness of his jaw beneath her fingers. "No," she whispered. "It brought me back to myself." Months later, the Belladonna Foundation reopened the Ashbourne Museum under a new name, the Serafina House, not as a monument to death, but as a place for stolen histories to be returned. Evelyn became its director, not because inheritance demanded it, but because she chose to preserve what others had tried to erase. Lucia visited on Sundays and spent hours in the children's gallery, drawing blue stars and black cars, and women with crowns who looked suspiciously like Evelyn. Dante still had enemies. Men like him always did. But he no longer stood alone outside every locked door. On the first winter gala of the new museum, Evelyn stood again beneath the chandeliers where everything had begun. She wore a simple black dress and no necklace. At the top of the staircase, the crowd parted. Dante entered with Lucia's hand in his. The room went quiet, as rooms always did when he arrived. But Evelyn saw what no one else did. The way his eyes found her before they measured exits. The way his shoulders eased when she smiled. The way Lucia let go of his hand and ran to Evelyn, who caught her in the middle of the marble hall beneath the restored chandelier. Dante approached slowly. "You changed the security plan," he said. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Hello to you too. There are fewer guards near the East Wing. There are children painting in the East Wing. I don't want armed men scaring them. I dislike blind corners. I dislike turning museums into military compounds." Lucia looked between them and sighed with the exhaustion of a child, surrounded by stubborn adults. Dante glanced down at his daughter, then back at Evelyn. "I will move them outside." Evelyn smiled. "Look at that, growth." His eyes darkened with quiet amusement. "Do not sound too surprised." The gala music began. Snow fell beyond the windows. Donors, journalists, artists, and survivors filled the hall where fear had once ruled. No one mentioned the old Ashbourne name. No one dared. Dante extended his hand. Evelyn looked at it, remembering another night, another offer, another version of herself who had taken his arm because cameras were watching and death waited nearby. This time, no one forced her. This time, she chose. She placed her hand in his. They danced beneath the chandeliers while snow covered the coast in silver. Dante moved with the control of a man who had learned war before tenderness, but when Evelyn stepped closer, his hand at her waist was careful, protective, not possessive, strong, not caging. "You're thinking," he said. "I usually am." "About?" "The first night I wore the necklace." His jaw tightened slightly. "I think about it too. You told me it chose me before you had the chance to." "Yes." She looked up at him. "Do you still believe that?" Dante was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "No." Evelyn's heart shifted. He lowered his voice. "I believe you chose yourself. Everything after that was the rest of us trying to deserve standing near you." Emotion rose in her throat before she could stop it. Around them, music swelled. Lucia laughed near the dessert table. Snow pressed softly against the windows. The museum breathed around them, no longer a crime scene, no longer a cage, but a house of restored names. Evelyn leaned closer. Dante's hand flexed once at her waist, then settled. Not claiming, holding. Outside, beyond the gates, black SUVs waited in the snow. Somewhere in the city, enemies still whispered his name with fear. Somewhere in the dark, old ghosts finally rested. But inside, beneath candlelight and painted ceilings, the most feared mafia boss in New England lowered his mouth near Evelyn's ear and spoke like a vow. "I used to think power meant no one could touch what was mine." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Careful." His eyes warmed in the dangerous, private way that belonged only to her. "Now I know power is being trusted to hold what is free." The final notes of the waltz faded. Evelyn looked at the man who had once entered her life through broken glass and snow, carrying grief like a weapon. He was still dangerous, still feared, still capable of becoming violence when the world threatened what he loved. But he had learned to stop at her voice. He had learned to wait for her hand. He had learned that devotion was not a cage. And Evelyn, who had spent her life preserving the past, finally allowed herself to step into something unwritten. She rose onto her toes and kissed him in the center of the museum, in front of everyone who had once whispered, doubted, accused, and watched. Dante Moretti did not look at the crowd. He only looked at her, as if the whole dangerous world had gone silent again, as if the necklace, the bloodlines, the betrayals, and the wars had all been leading to this single impossible truth. Not that she belonged to him, not that he had saved her, but that she had walked through fire, snow, scandal, and the shadow of his obsession, and still chosen to stay. Beyond the windows, the storm returned softly to Newport. Inside, Evelyn Hart Belladonna danced with the Mafia boss, who had once shut down a museum for a necklace, and ended up surrendering his entire guarded heart to the woman brave enough to wear it.